Hi, this is Sharon Martin. I'm the author of the new book, the CBT Workbook for Perfectionism. And I'm really excited about the book and super happy about the positive feedback that I have been getting. I also have had a number of questions that tend to fall into two categories. One is why a workbook about perfectionism? And the other one is why CBT, or what is CBT, for those who aren't even familiar with it. So I'm going to try to answer both of those questions for you fairly quickly in this video. So the reason I wrote the workbook about perfectionism is that I just keep seeing it becoming more and more of a problem. I see it in my clinical practice and the clients that I see for psychotherapy all of the time. And it's also something that I have definitely struggled with over my life. And part of putting it into a book is synthesizing both the information and the exercises, the practical steps that I took personally to improve in this area, and also the things that I teach to my clients as well. So the book is designed, it is a workbook. It's designed to, have you do the exercises so that you can learn these practical skills in order to make significant changes for yourself. So I would say one of the overarching issues that people come to see me for therapy is, or they realize once they get into therapy, is that they are very self-critical. I would say probably everybody that I see for therapy says that they are much harder on themselves than they are on other people. Now, certainly for some perfectionists are also very hard and have really high standards for other people, which causes some relationship problems. But like I said, everybody will agree with the idea, the statement that they're very self-critical and they have this really harsh inner critic that is constantly telling them that they're not good enough, that they should have done better, that even the slightest of mistakes is unacceptable. And so it's really this ongoing negative dialogue that you're having with yourself. And often it's not even something that you're aware of. Sometimes it certainly pops into your consciousness, but a lot of it is really kind of background noise. It's just the beliefs that we have about ourselves, that we're inadequate, that we're not as good as everybody else. We shouldn't have to try so hard. And this leads us to those perfectionist behaviors, the constant need to do more, to achieve more, to prove ourselves, as if we're not enough otherwise. So we're constantly needing to, get this validation for ourselves that we're okay, that we're adequate, that we're as good as everybody else. And so we set this really high bar for ourselves, which becomes so high that there's no possible way that we can actually meet those expectations. And therefore we're in this sort of, self-sabotage cycle of expecting so much of ourselves because our self-esteem is dependent on it. But then there's no way that we can meet those expectations. So therefore, we're continuing to criticize ourselves and diminish our self-esteem, right? So you can see how it leaves us in a really negative place. So that's sort of the piece about why it's so important that we attack those perfectionistic, those rigid negative thoughts that we have. And CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy, if you're not familiar with it. It's been along for quite a while, and it's very commonly used by therapists because there's a lot of research that backs up how effective that it is. And essentially what it does is it helps you change those negative thoughts. They're often called distorted thoughts. Because that's kind of what we do. We sort of twist up reality in our mind, like I said, often without even realizing that we're doing it, so that we have a very negative view of ourselves, and that leads to that self-criticism, which then leads to those perfectionistic behaviors. So with the CBT, we're really trying to understand what our thought process is and get in there and untwist that so that we have this more realistic view of ourselves. It's really based on reality instead of based on these unrealistic expectations that we can never possibly meet. So in the book, what you'll actually see is, while there is a lot of cognitive behavioral exercises in there to help you change your negative thinking, there's also a good amount of self-compassion and mindfulness exercises in there, because what I really have found over the years is it's that combination of all of those components and those different approaches that really can help us learn to, be gentler with ourselves, to have more kindness and understanding for our mistakes so that we can really use those mistakes and even just sort of understandings that, we're flawed as human beings, of course, that we can accept ourselves for who we are, and we can stop having to do so much all of the time, and that we can really just feel good about ourselves, no matter what we're accomplishing, whether we're successful or we're not so successful, and that there's a lot of ground in between. So anyway, that's just a quick little overview for you. If you have other questions, feel free to let me know. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram and all the other social media places, or shoot me an email and I'd be happy to answer your questions. Thanks so much.